I am happy to turn over the floor to Sherry Gilbert. And in the off chance you are unfamiliar with Sherry, which I just almost can't imagine, but Sherry is a sort of a senior CBI, senior Mindscape instructor, Parama practitioner. Sherry is the one that John asked to take his client base when he could no longer support them because of his health. So, I mean, I can't imagine a greater honor. And she is one of the scant handful of people that is doing all of the administrative stuff and sort of like holding up the works that keeps the IBA going. So Sherry is like an important feature in our BodyTalk matrix in all kinds of ways. And it's a real honor to have her here. And so with that, I will hand it over and she's going to share with us her wisdom, brilliance, and insight. So take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you for the great introduction, Robin. Yeah, it does. My tasks go from being a student of BodyTalk all the way up to training new instructors, and I also work on the back end with the IBA team, and it's a great team. I was saying to Robin that it's amazing how much can get done with so few people. We honestly don't meet that often, but we all seem to always be on the same page and ready to bounce ideas around. So any of the team at the office, if you have any questions, they are more than willing and able to help you with whatever questions you might have. So it doesn't all revolve on me or fall on me, but I do have an intricate knowledge of all the layers of when we first start out in BodyTalk all the way up to the back end administration. So it's kind of a cool position that I've landed myself in. I honestly ask every day, how did I get here? And I don't really know, other than I'm truly passionate about this work. It has changed my life, as many of our stories go. When we get introduced to BodyTalk, things just start to unravel and flow. And when I started out in this journey, I was a mom that was sitting in doctor's offices way too long. Felt like I was wasting my life sitting and waiting for our rural doctors to see my kids. And I had three. And so it seemed like every week we were there. And I was really tired of sitting there with three babies. So I decided there's got to be something else. And so I started in on a Reiki journey, which is interesting because that's how John and Esther also started this work. They went around the world teaching Reiki before they taught BodyTalk classes. So kind of cool that a lot of us come in that way. And yeah, from there, I knew Reiki was great, but I had a hard time explaining it and really understanding it at that point in my life. And so when I found BodyTalk, what I loved about it was that it got such great results so quickly. I'm a kind of an impatient person, so I like that part of it. And the other part was there was so much science, and John really, his brain was so intellectually science based and wanting to integrate these other alternative, I can't say that they're alternative, they're more complementary medicine into the medical field, because it gives us a bigger picture, a whole picture, a whole healthcare picture. So that's really how I got started, and it's very similar to many other journeys. When I decided that I wanted to teach this work, was with BodyTalk Access. I started my journey in 2007, and by 2009, I was teaching the BodyTalk Access class. And from there, it just has grown. I love teaching. I love seeing people inspired to take their own healthcare into their own hands. And Access truly is that class that gives people those take-home techniques that they can just apply anywhere, anytime. So that class really was what launched me. And then when I realized how much I enjoyed teaching and seeing students inspired and lives changing and thought processes, like I love to see brains just open up and get curious and explore all the different facets that this work has to offer. And I call it work, but really it's been so fun. I can't imagine a better job, either as a practitioner or as an instructor. Um, just watching the miracles unfold every single day, and then not disregarding the miracles that also unfold in us as individuals as we're honored to observe this work and be active observers in other people's journeys of health and how that reflects to us. So there's so many different layers that inspire me and want me to keep going. Um, I sometimes get asked, like, what body talk has helped me to see or experience differently in my life. And probably the biggest thing has been the concept of letting go, and surrender. Um, I've always been a person, I'm, I was, I can't say I'm anymore, but I was kind of a type A personality of needing to know and needing to be prepared and grasping all the time for that sense of control, like not as a dominating, but more as a self-protecting mechanism of like, how do I make my environment safe? And it's to know what's going on, right? And so when I got to that module 3 class, and I remember Sylvia Musniak's talking about control, and I honestly had to take that class about 6 times. I think I've taken it 8 or 9 now, but I didn't realize there was even techniques in that class because I was so wound up. My brain was so wound up when she said, "You have no control." I'm like, what? Are you crazy? Of course I have control. I have perfect control. And it took me 5 classes of listening to that to start unwinding the tight raveling that my brain had. And it just fascinates me as I go back and I look and I'm like, wow, you were a hard nut to crack. And it did. I was able to get into that. And now sometimes I'm like, oh, did the pendulum swing too far the other way? Because now it's like whatever, like you don't have control over it anyways. And so like trying to find that balance of the philosophies, like you don't have control, but that doesn't mean that you don't take action, right? And so those are kind of the big philosophies and the things that I've enjoyed grappling with and still continue to grapple with and try to embrace those concepts a little bit more. But letting go has been one of my favorites, and the letting go of control has been one of my favorite things. And even having control over what the position I find myself in my career, I didn't really have any control over that. John essentially threw me into the fire. He's like, okay, I'm not seeing clients. I was giving him heck and saying, you need to get to these people. I'm tired of, because I managed his back end of his clinic. And I said, I'm tired of telling people you're canceling. And he's like, well, you just see them then. And I'm thinking, okay, but I don't see people. My clients don't get me for half an hour. They got me for an hour. Like I just felt like I needed that time. And so he really pushed me in many ways, in so many regards, career-wise, life-wise. So I feel like it's been quite a privilege to be able to find myself where I didn't ever think I was going to be. So I do teach. I teach mostly I teach fundamentals and Mindscape. I do teach the advanced classes, but I do not post those very often. Just try to juggle my own personal life and business and clients, and I like to have a little fun too. I'm kind of at that age where, it's time is running out. Time doesn't exist, but there is kind of process that we all have to go through. So I tend to try and find that balance, and in life and career now, the more than I used to. I used to be completely career oriented. Yeah, so when I when I see new potential for people in growth in their career, whether it be growing their practice or whether they decide to take the next step and become an instructor, it excites me. I love to see people opening up doors for themselves, opening up doors for other people, and that's really what the teaching aspect does, is that it gets us to inspire ourselves but also inspire others. And I love to watch, the magic happen and the curiosity of people's minds grow. That's probably my favorite part of life, is just opening up that curiosity, the different perspectives of the way that you can see things. And that is what keeps inspiring me to keep going too, because I'm by nature curious. And if there's a different way to see it, or a different way to do it, or a different perspective that I haven't considered, I love considering the new perspectives. So when you sign up to train with me, and other of our supervising instructors, we are not just we have a set guideline of assignments that are standardized for everybody, but we also love to see the brains and the minds and the brilliance open up, and that get pulled out for the world to see from people. And so we will like ask you to go deeper and to really embody the work, and like, what does it mean for you, and how does that work in your life? And it's that reflection and that the mirroring aspect of the work that really gets us to the places that we get to go next. Um, so there are standardized things that the IBA looks for in new instructors, and we want you to be open-minded and kind of have that passion and to grow the business and to share this work with everybody. And I think those are the people that always rise to the top of the um, practitioners and the instructors, and the students just naturally drive that themselves. So they always just kind of appear to us, and yeah. So we look for that passion. We also want like a professionalism to be able to handle a business. So a lot of our practitioners were more minded in the sense of healing and not necessarily business minded. So groups like this, where you get that business coaching aspects and bounce ideas off of each other, those are real opportunities. So you guys are doing a great job here, trying to grow the business side of things and learn from each other, because I think as practitioners, we're just naturally born healer mentalities, and that doesn't always equate to business mentalities. So bringing it together, I love to see that. And our business is a sense of healing. Like every time we grow and we get to the next level in our business, that is a very healing practice if we choose to look at it that way. So I like to see those passionate people come in, to see that business mind getting cultivated. I love to see the community organizations and the participation in the matrix, like all over, and it's becoming easier and easier with Zoom, and the fact that we're doing online teachings. Like we have so much more access than we've ever had before, so much more opportunities. So I really enjoy that aspect of the growing the business. And as far as personally, I think every instructor or trainee needs to make sure that they have a support system. So if you've got a family, a young family, making sure that that family is willing to support you on your endeavors. It's really hard to build a career when you've got people that don't want you to build that career, right? They need you at home. So finding that work-life balance is really essential, and to have that good support within community of body talkers. I've met some of my most favorite, bestest friends in this system. So they've been longtime challengers of my own little brain and pathways of thinking, but also the little bit of push that you need to keep growing yourselves. So I can't emphasize enough how much it is of use and of value to have a community of support, and home life too, making sure that if you're endeavoring on a career that you are supported in all the ways that you need to, because we can go down the rabbit holes of just being so engrossed in our careers and forget about the rest of life. So just making sure that you find balance. It exists everywhere. We're always in balance. It's just, we sometimes lean into one area or another, but just making sure that we're observing and knowing, consciously living what we're doing and being aware of that. Um, and how we want to grow the next step, right? Um, so things that probably intrigue me on this whole journey are the continued opportunities. Just as soon as I met the access instructor um, level, I was like, oh, yay, this is what I've always wanted. And then all of a sudden, I've taught that of a little while, and I'm like, I might want to teach fundamentals. And so it just really intrigued me to see my own self want to keep going with the trainings. But I think what I love about being in the instructor trainings is the personal transformation. So the assignments are like the little check boxes that you just check the boxes, really. Like um, you could read the textbook, and you could be a good public speaker, and you could just check that box. Yeah, got that assignment done. But the real personal transformations that happen as you embark on the instructor training, that's where the magic really is. And then the the magic slash sometimes struggles, because sometimes it was difficult to get that training done. I'll never forget my Mindscape training. My Mindscape instructor training was probably one of my most difficult. Um, I don't know if everybody has taken Mindscape, you'll kind of understand what I'm saying. But when I would go into my workshop, um, I didn't have one. It was in a black, it was just blackness everywhere, all around me. I didn't have a nature scene. I couldn't see colors. I couldn't do anything. And so then it became, every time I tried to do Mindscape, I would just fall asleep. So I ended up doing a lot of my training standing up. I had to let go of the idea that I was going to see anything. And it's those experiences that push you as a practitioner and as a person, and really embarking on, okay, what is this teaching me? Why am I experiencing this right now? And it's those opportunities for the personal transformations and reflections that really blew my mind. Um, and if I wouldn't have had those experiences that I did through that training, I wouldn't be able to walk the student through them not having the sense of sight, right? Because my visual was always so present that I had to get it taken away in order to be able to walk somebody else through that journey, right? So that it didn't make any sense to me at the time, and I complained to Sylvia bitterly, I'm sure, and she's just like, go with it, just go with it. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful, you know. So just that forcing me into that more deeper letting go, that deeper surrender, and allowing myself to come out on the other side of it going, oh, you weren't doing it wrong. This was what you needed in order to be able to understand somebody else's pet and have empathy for somebody else's situation. So those moments that push you to the brink of like, nope, this is not for me. I must not be meant to be a Mindscape instructor. Those moments are the real gems in the training process for yourself in the personal journeys. And as much as I love walking other people through those types of things, lots of times it is just to stand back and say, yeah. And I thought, oh, Sylvia, you're not very helpful in that. But it was the most helpful because it really did push me to where I needed to get to be able to walk somebody else through that. So, um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about um, the joy in instructor training and the struggles in instructor training, because it's not all joyful. But at the end of the day, we really come out the other side of it with a deeper understanding and an embodying of the philosophy. And it cultivates our skills not only as practitioners, but as humans. And yeah, it's just great to share the work, to watch people grow, and to watch myself grow. I just can't forget about yourselves as you go through all of this process of healing, because we think we're healers of others, but really they are us, right? If we embrace those philosophies of principles of consciousness, and there is no separation, and the concepts of mirroring, and we really walk that talk, it's an incredible journey. And every client, every trainee that we get to interact with just brings more richness to our experiences. Yeah, so that I if you guys are at all interested in becoming an instructor of any of the modules of Body Talk or Mindscape or Breakthrough, if you guys go to the website bodytalksystem.com and into the members, you do have to be a member. Into the members download area, there's a little space. It's just like this little one button that is a word. It says click here if you're interested in trainings. And that'll bring you up a list of supervising instructors that you can teach with, train with. It brings you up the application forms. So you have to have a Dropbox folder. That's where we upload the application forms. Once you get an application form, the fee is $150 to apply. That's the admin fee. And then your supervising instructor that you choose will review all of your content, so your application content. So they're going to look for spelling mistakes. They're going to review your video, because we ask for an application video, and they'll review that to make sure that all the content that is needed for the review committee is in your video. And depending on what course you're applying for, the requirements are a little bit different, but really what we want to hear is what brings you here? Why are you passionate about this? Why do you want to teach? And who do you want to teach? Do you have a target market? And then once the application is approved by your supervising instructor, then it gets sent on to a review committee. I also sit on those review committees. There's a bunch of us that review applications, and just making sure that we're holding up the integrity of the system as John would have wanted it. I'll never forget one day, well, it was more than a day, it was probably a month of him saying, we are not turning out instructors that know this material, and our review committee is not doing their job and screening. And I had to really assure him that we are, that there was a whole process. And when I explained the process to him again, because he had not been on the review committee for a couple of years before that, but when I explained the process, he's like, oh, this is good. This is a good process. So it takes a community to do this work. And really the review committee is there to ensure that that there's a standardization, and that there is community support in the area that the instructors want to go to, and just making sure that that there's resources when we do become instructors, if there's any issues that we come into, that just knowing that you have a whole team that you can come back to, especially your supervising instructor. They're very helpful and willing to go. But we do have it is a process, and there's a reason for it. We just don't want everybody willy-nilly out there teaching whatever kind of they want. We want the information to go out in a standardized way, but that a way that can reach everybody too. So the delivery of all the stuff varies a lot, but just as long as the content is delivered, that's what we're looking for. Yeah, so once the review committee signs off, then you are able to start your training, and there's a whole checklist of assignments, and your supervising instructor might see other opportunities that could help you to grow, and they will definitely hone in on those and help you cultivate the skill as they see that you might need. And then once you finish your training, your supervising instructor signs off and you become a certified instructor. So that's the process. And once you're an instructor, you're kind of spread your wings and fly. You always have a backup team, and you always have that home base of your supervisor instructor. You've always got the IBA team to support you as you go. But really, once you graduate, you're really free to teach the work anytime, anywhere. Yeah, and we just hope that everybody has a good experience through the training and is able to deepen their own personal growth. I think that's the biggest gem in teacher training for me, was that deepening. Yeah. So I don't know if I've covered anything. If Robin, do you think there's anything that else that maybe I haven't touched upon that maybe we should?
Yeah, I'll just hop in here and say thank you, because I knew we were going to talk a little bit about teaching. How would you say that adding teaching, adding being a trainer, especially starting as an access trainer, how did it change your practice? How did it change your business? Like, because the folks on here, we're trying to make a living and, really have something sustainable and, reliable. So what happened for you with that?
Yeah, so when I started teaching access, it seemed to be the piece that my student or my practice needed, because as I was working on people in clinic, they would go and then they would come back with kind of same reoccurring things, and I was getting bored, to be honest. I was getting bored, and so when I started teaching access, and my practice, my clients started to learn that, it was like that was the piece that they could use to maintain themselves in between sessions. And so then the next sessions, we could go deeper and deeper. And it also seemed like every time I started to train in a new course, that the work, I just honed in on that work through with those clients, and I deepened the work through that training, and my clients have just kind of grown with me. As I deepen the work in the philosophy and the understanding and the application, then they get to, it's like we just keep leveling up every time. So with access, probably the biggest thing I noticed was that we had a tool for them to use in between the sessions, and then that let me go deeper, and we didn't have as much backslide. I don't, for a lack of a better word, but we just didn't have as much we could keep going instead of kind of keep rebuilding that foundation that we had already built, right? Or I thought we had already built. So yeah, that was probably my favorite piece of growing that big part of the business, was the jump from clients to teaching and letting them have the experience of tools that they could go home with, just besides courtesies. Yeah.
That's great. And Sandy is asking a question in the chat. Would it be necessary to be certified as a practitioner before starting to train as an instructor?
Yes. So obviously for Mindscape and Breakthrough, they are not BodyTalk practitioners, so we don't have a certification for that. But if you want to teach BodyTalk Access or fundamentals, any of the advanced modules, yes, it is important that you do need to be a CBP. So for Access, we just say a CBP, but we do like to see that you've taken all of the advanced training. Yeah, it just seems to enhance the students' experience when, if they have a question and we have very trained, skilled instructors that have taken all of the material and have that deep understanding, it just is much easier for the students, but also for the instructor. Yeah. In case they get caught with a question that they aren't sure of because they haven't taken the advanced modules. Yeah.
And I have another practical question, which is like, how often, especially when you started, because now you've been going for a while, but when you first started, how often would you teach an access class? So you had, because it sounds like you were mostly marketing to your clients, which is, there's a little bit of a low hanging fruit situation there, where there's the ones that want, and then after, then they've taken it. So how did that look for you?
Yeah, I would teach it. I was a busy mom too, and we also had a ranch, so I probably taught it every other month or every couple of months, like 3 months. Um, when I first started, that's a long time ago to remember. Um, and then what ended up happening was that I started to travel more to teach because people wanted the access class brought to them. So then coordinators became very important, and people were asking for the material in their area. So then I ended up I was running 3 clinics to start with. So I had 3 clinics that were, one was 20 minutes away from home, one was an hour and 20 away from home, and then one was 2 hours away from home. So I was marketing to a fairly broad base with all those 3 clinics. And then, so the teaching, once I started teaching, I found it even more difficult to maintain the clinical practices, especially once I started teaching fundamentals, because then the geography really opened up and I was being asked to go farther. And it was a 4-day class. So then it really started to, it was the juggling of my schedule. So I ended up closing clinics one by one. And then I was online. My client base has been online way before COVID. I did not run a physical clinic anymore because my teaching career had expanded so much that it just was not longer practical for me to run a clinical space. So yeah, I've been online for a long time. So there's a big transformation in, your geography area that you go to, and then now that we're online, the world has opened up for all of us as instructors, as coordinators, and as clinicians, as practitioners. So, just being able to be adaptable, in and letting go of things again, right? Like I couldn't physically be in all the places that I wanted to be. So then prioritizing. And so again, coming back to the philosophy, right? And what are you prioritizing and how are you going to do this? And what is a new creative way that you could have to look at this? What's a different solution? This isn't working, try something else. And so without um, without becoming an instructor, I probably would have continued to run myself ragged in clinical practice, running 3 clinics because I wanted it to be accessible to everybody. And yeah, so it's changed. Lots of it has changed, and I'm sure it'll change again. So just being open to and flexible with your clinical practice and how you incorporate instructorship and making sure that it works for your life. All of us instructors lead very different lives. And so we focus on different things, and sometimes we're more clinical based, sometimes we're more instructor based. It just allowing that flexibility, that's part of the beauty of this job, is that we can be flexible and cater to our own life and our own needs as well. Yeah. Did that answer the question, Robin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to me, that's the appeal. So, you guys, what I'm hearing is that the takeaway is if you are looking to deepen your personal growth, deepen your practice, expand your practice, expand your reach, and maybe start getting invited to go different places if you like to do that, then adding instructor training to your to-do list is probably a good idea. And we were talking about this a little bit before we started too, but Sherry was my teacher trainer for to be a BodyTalk Access trainer, and I went through the whole process, and it is a yeah, there were moments that were learning curves for me. I found that I am very personal. I get a little jagged about criticism. I want everyone to think I'm awesome 24 hours a day, all the time. And that's just not the nature of training. So it was a growth experience, and it definitely helped me understand body talk better, my work better, my clients better. And it was really powerful. So, and now let's just finish up with the access outreach a little bit, because now there's this new initiative. If folks haven't heard about it, it's just sort of came online to kind of go back to the body talk roots. And so reconsider if you've thought about being an access trainer in any part of your brain, or even if it's a new idea to you, this is a good time to consider it. So you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Body Talk Access outreach has, in the past, traditionally been just for places where disaster had struck. It was really, John wanted access to be accessible to everyone in the world. And Dorothy Friesen, she was just such an advocate and for this work and making sure that people had access in their own hands. And so what she ended up doing, she was working in the Philippines, and they ended up having everywhere that she looked, she saw issues, whether it was the threat of violence, or whether it was natural disasters, or whether it was cleaning up after the US military and their stuff. And she just wanted these people to have the tools that were so valuable for her in her own personal life. And so she started sharing. And with John's blessing, she started doing outreach programs. They called it outreach, access outreach, where instructors, she was a body talk access trainer, and so she would just go and oversee communities that would have outreach projects. So people would, the communities would meet, and they would learn these techniques so that they actually had healthcare at their fingertips where there was not always healthcare. And so that program, I worked with Dorothy for quite a few years before we were just trying to tailor the program into a way that was kind of standardized, so that we could kind of still understand what the needs of each community were and grow access in areas of the world that we're all different. We're all so unique, right? And each area of the world is so unique. So trying to figure out, well, how does this get everywhere? And that really is what access outreach is, to figure out how we can get body talk access everywhere. Um, and sometimes there are social or cultural or monetary obstacles in people's way, and how do we overcome those in each area? So the program is coming together. There will be like an application process to do outreach work, more just letting the IBA know where you're going and what you're doing, just so that we would love to share and inspire the rest of the world, so that these things can carry on, because it is through sharing of stories that community is built and that ideas spread, right? So that's really what we want in this process of kind of standardizing it, but just more of an allowing of other people to do this work. Just wanting to broaden the space of where it's shared and how it's shared. So this is the outreach process. I'm teaching a Body Talk Access outreach class at the end of May. I'm working on the IBF site, the International Body Talk Foundation site. I'm working on a place there that people can go to, like practitioners can go to figure out, okay, how do I do outreach in my community, and what would that look like in my area of the world, and just trying to get a standardized place for everybody to share ideas and start something great in their area. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know that there is still a great group going down in the Philippines um, that has been going since Dorothy's inception there. And there's been various other areas in the world. South Africa is another one that there's been outreach in. So if anybody is interested in that sort of work, get in touch with me. We just did a little information meeting. It was recorded. Um, the video, I just don't know exactly where it is hosted, but it will eventually get onto the IBF site. For now, I know that it went out in an email to everybody. So if you didn't get it and you're interested in it, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Thank you. And in the follow-up email here, I will send a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so we are hearing that if you want to grow your practice, grow yourself, serve your community, and serve the world, then consider adding teaching to your roster. Is that our key takeaway?
Yes. Yeah. It definitely deepens the personal transformation for yourselves. It it's an opportunity to share our passions, because I know we would not be here looking at each other if we were not all passionate about this work. So yeah, it's awesome.
And if folks want to get a hold of you, reach out to you, book with you, take classes with you, best way to do that.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's 8 potential.com, so infinite potential. Um, so you can have a scope out there and see what things are offered, classes, and you can book sessions there as well. And I just stepped out of my very closed comfort zone here last week and released a podcast. So have a listen to that if you dare. Yeah, but I would be so grateful if you would follow, or yeah, just give a review, give me feedback on anything, that topics that you would love explored. It's only 10 minutes. I've tried to keep it short. I know everybody's lives are busy, but it's called Unfolding Infinity, and it's on Spotify and YouTube so far. And yeah, I'm hoping I keep going with it. It's something new. It's stretching me again out of my comfort zone. Like I said, you guys, this work is really about personal transformation. And the more that we put into it, the more that we get out of it. So, as terrifying as it was, there it is, unfolding into infinity.
Well, that's exciting. So again, I will look up the link and share it in the email. So if I will say again, if you found this through another one of the channels, someone recommended it, you found it through Facebook, whatever, then drop your email in the chat and I'll make sure that you're added to the list so you can get the follow-up email. Well, Sherry, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to add or share before we wrap up?
I am just so thankful that you asked. I love meeting with you guys. I love seeing the faces, and the community that you guys have built is exceptional. And I'm so thankful that you guys have built this and you have each other as a resource. It's so great to see. So thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much for being here. Big love.
Anytime.